Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to Throwbacks, where we talk all things cool and retro, and welcome to the worst of Star Wars in 2024. I don't normally like to be negative, but unfortunately there is no light without the dark, so we have to get a little dark. And spoiler alert, if you're a vintage collection purist, apologist, this might not be the best video for you, as I'm gonna go a little hard on the vintage collection this go around. And starting at number 5 is just happens to be one of those cases with the vintage collection Blurrg. Now, is it terrible? No, it's not terrible. And I should also preface this by a lot of these are not terrible figures. They're really not. But when I calculate this in my brain, I always want to do a cost, you know, how much did I get out of the figure versus, you know, how much I paid for the figure. And at $40 for this Blurrg / Mandalorian card to figure, which I do give credit, you do get a Mandalorian card to figure. However, it's the same exact Mandalorian with a different cape, basically. So you're paying for what is essentially one of a million different Mandalorian figures, so that didn't cost them any money. And then I don't think this cost them $20 either, so you're basically saying $20 a figure, or, you know, $25 for this. I don't see it. It's cool, but I get lost. I'll say this, the eye on this thing is unbelievable. Good job, Hasbro, on that. They did a decent weathering job on the figure, but as you can kind of see, they just couldn't quite, for me at least, figure out a way to get the saddle looking good for the characters to ride on them, Mandalorian or oh boy, here I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. But then you kind of lose it in the saddle, just the detail. It's like, you know, you did all this nice weathering and stuff on here, and then you have the saddle and reins that are clearly just the plastic color molded, and it's a bummer, and it really distracts me a whole lot. It takes away from the figure, in my opinion. I think it's just super unfortunate, because I think we could have had a very nice set. And like I said, it's not the worst, but for $40 and to miss out the marks so badly here on the saddle, and then giving us a very generic Mandalorian as some sort of kind of cost benefit, you know, it just doesn't work for me. So coming in at number 5 from the vintage collection is the Blurrg. Alright, we're ready for number 4, and all is fair at number 4, and we're going to have to, it was a tough decision, it really was, between these two. But we are going to go with, from the Geonosis Battle Pack, I guess you would call it, from the Black Series, C3PO as a battle droid. And you can already see him having trouble. And this is the reason. Is it a bad figure? I mean, it's not a great figure. To me, any battle droid, until they figure out a way to make these guys stand up without having to use a stand, is just crazy to me. I don't understand how, I mean, you know, like, that's not good. That's not okay. Yeah, this is part of a, I think, $50 pack, so this is a $25 figure. And reality is, it's just a simple repaint with a 3PO head popped on the top. And to make it to where it cannot stand on its own is just crazy. You have to figure out a way. I understand you have to keep some aesthetic of it, but make a bigger foot, make a minuscule change that it's a little wider, the plastic's a little thicker, you have to spend a little bit more money on the legs in order to make them stand. But to have a figure in the Black Series line that is incapable of standing up in the year 2024, to me, is unacceptable. For any toy company, Hasbro needs to figure this out, and they need to figure it out quickly, because otherwise every battle droid that comes out that has this problem will end up on my list, and I know they don't want to end up on my list. But coming in at number 4, unfortunately, from the Black Series line, C3PO as a battle droid. Alright, we made it to top 3, and this is yet another case of kind of value meeting my anger, and that is going to be again from the Black Series. This time we are looking at you, little Annie, Anakin Skywalker. $25 for a figure that is, let's see, I can't show you that figure because it's part of my whatever. Okay, here we go. It's the size of a pocket knife. How about that? There you go. It's the size of a pocket knife. And the only accessories he has is what you see here. I think his face is not very good. It's okay. I don't know why they went with such a pouty face on him. Maybe he does have a little pouty to him. And I feel like they could have dirtied him up a little bit. Like, this kid is on Tatooine. I feel like he could be a little more grungy looking. That's just my personal opinion on it. I feel like they could have done a little better job there, and on the backpack. But yeah, to not give us an extra head, with him in his pod racing helmet or just a helmet accessory, it's criminal. They just know that we wanted this figure, and we're gonna pay the $25, which we did, and that's my fault. That's on me for paying that, but it's a figure I wanted. But it's a gut punch to not get an extra head or a Sebulba. Why wasn't a Sebulba packed in with this? There's no way that they needed the margins to where they couldn't put in a Sebulba. So for me, it's a simple, clear case of basically another just Hasbro, kind of taking advantage of the collector, knowing that they absolutely desire this figure, and taking full advantage of it, and not giving us the proper figure with accessories and getting us the bang for the buck that we deserve as consumers. So coming in at number 3 from the Black Series line, Little Annie, Anakin Skywalker. Alright, and here we go for the last 2, and yes, they're going to be vintage collection figures. They're going to be expensive figures, and they're going to be figures that just did not live up to the hype, the billing that they so deserve in this line. And number 2, we are going to go with Captain Enoch and his other troopers. So this was a 4-pack. I'm pretty sure it's an online exclusive again, and I will say the gold on it's good. Enoch is probably the absolute best representation of all these 4 figures. But you get into trouble when you start looking at the gold and the cracks and stuff. So it's just painted on cracks. It's not real. There's no real cracks in the actual helmets. It's all just painted on. You don't get actual detail there. And it's just a super bummer. And these should be a lot dirtier. They're most of them are, beat up, have been sitting on a planet for, decades at this point. Some of them are dead, all these kind of, they end up being dead. So they're super shiny, which they shouldn't be. And like you see here, look at that design. That looks so stupid. It just looks dumb. Is it a tattoo on his chest? What are we doing? With that said, a figure that was probably number 6 in my top 5 Star Wars figures would have been the Black Series version of Captain Enoch and this guy. Home run. They figured it out. Let's do an actual crack. They got inside the minuscule, smallest little cracks on these figures and got the gold in there, and they just look outstanding. Such a good job on the Black Series line. But when they, scaled them down or up to vintage collection, it did not translate at all for me. They're fine to have on the shelf because, it is what it is, but price point and expectation versus reality on these figures was very disheartening. So number 2 is very easy to say. Captain Enoch and his other fellow Night Death, whatever you want to call him, trooper. So just a bummer and kind of sad. Talking about sad, talking about bad, we've got the number 1 figure of the sad list. The dark side of the list, we'll call it. And this is, again, a vintage collection figure. It's one that was actually kind of one of our more popular videos, getting a lot of conversations going, which we do appreciate the conversations. And that comes out to be the vintage collection Cobb Vanth. Now, I'll say if you stick him straight up and down like this, it's not the worst thing. It's kind of in the details that you get the issues with Cobb Vanth. And when you think about the fact that this is $25, the price of a full-blown Black Series figure, which, again, we won't even go on to that. They should still be $20 bucks, but that's a whole nother thing there. So this is the price of a full-blown Black Series action figure, and it's just very, very lacking. I think, Yeah, so this is a separate head. So on his actual human head, he just doesn't have any color in his hair. It's one color. They didn't bother to add any wash on it. The blue symbol here is way too vibrant. It's in the show, it's scraped up and barely noticeable at all. This armor doesn't connect. It looks trashy here. It doesn't connect, so it's just flopped on there. Then you move down and you have this new thing that they've been doing with the code, whatever code that is, being so obvious at the front of the figure. Like, what are we doing? Like, hi, I'm Cobb Vanth. I'm a freaking robot apparently because I have a number printed on my leg. Just not good. Way too clean jetpack, and then they actually do a hole all the way through his Boba Fett armor and into his body. So if you want to make this a 2-in-1, you can't. Like why? And Uncle BJ and me were talking about, why not just do the bump be on the armor and the hole be in the jetpack, and then it actually can be a 2-in-1. You can actually have Cobb Vanth walking around without him having a giant, massive hole in his back, like he got taken out by some Tusken sharpshooters while watching the Boonta Eve or something like that. So this figure really just chapped my butt pretty raw, and is definitely deserving of the #1 spot in our very unfortunate dark side of the list, top 5 worst Star Wars figures of 2024. But what do you guys think? I know it's not always fun being negative, but most of these aren't terrible, so they're just kind of a bummer when you get excited about certain ones, like the Anakin figure, and they just don't quite live up to your expectations. But like I said, what do you guys think? What's your guys' list? Post it down in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you guys think. You think we're wrong? You think we're right? At the end of the day, it's all opinion, so no one's really right or wrong, so it's just a good old time. But leave that in the comments down below, and while you're there, why not go ahead and hit us with a like, and of course, subscribe to the channel as we post new content every single day. But it is time to throw one back. It's time to get on out of here. So for myself and Uncle BJ, we are going to throw one back. And we'll see you all next time.